Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Senator Cynthia Villar for an excellent speech. She really, in a way, has defined the pathway towards greater prosperity or shared prosperity among us Filipinos. And this is what we need. Agri is the big game changer towards improving the lives of many Filipino people. Again, I am surprised. This is the first ASEAN Agri Summit. Actually, in my meeting with the Chinese ambassador, he told me, do you know that you are holding the first Agri ASEAN Summit ever? And I'm also surprised that the number of people who have attended this morning's event, we didn't quite know the number that will be attending because everybody was saying they will just show up. So if we lack food, please don't blame us, but we already have a contingency. But again, congratulations to all of you for being part of this historic event. I felt that ASEAN cannot finish the year without having an Agri Summit. I'd like to greet also George Barcelon, the President of the Philippine Chamber. George is part of the council with me in the ASEAN Business Advisory Council, and we've been at this for the last couple of months. It's been a challenging, tiring 8 months for me, especially preparing for the biggest event in November, and I hope to see all of you, which is the ASEAN Business and Investment Summit, where we invited 12 leaders, state leaders, and about 30 business leaders all over ASEAN and America and so forth. And of course, Ambassador Winayang of Myanmar, welcome. And I hope to see your leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, in our event on November 12, 13, and 14. And of course, Betty Medaldia, who heads the Cabinet Spouses Foundation. These are the women who are actually the power behind our cabinet secretaries. So I felt it's very important for them to be part of this activity, and always remind their husbands that let's go and help a lot of those people out there who want to become one day like you in this room. And of course, our powerful cast of speakers through the day. We have a couple of foreign speakers from within ASEAN to share their knowledge. Actually, it all started from us in UP, the first scientists teaching many of them. And today we're learning from many of them what we in the past mentored. Over my past 12 years in really helping create greater prosperity for many of our Filipinos through my advocacy in Go Negosyo, and now as an ASEAN BAC chair and an advisor to the President on entrepreneurship, I summarize this all into basically my learnings in where we should focus as private sector. It is first and foremost very important that government, the public sector, and the private sector have a great relationship. Why? Because both sectors will create the difference in the landscape of our future of many of those that fall at the poverty line. As Cynthia Villar points out, that just between the coconut farmers and the rice farmers, they comprise bulk of the agricultural workforce, entrepreneurs who are struggling to make a living and eventually become many, like here, Henry, Winston, and all of you successful entrepreneurs, to make it to that level. And if you guys can make it, it is our obligation to really bring them up that ladder. Prosperity can never be achieved if the pyramid of the business community will remain at 99.6 MSME and 0.4 large and extra large. And to the past months, I've been constantly meeting with our conglomerates. And many of you in the alliance of the chambers which we have formed, the business chambers, the Philippine Chamber of Industry, the Filipino-Chinese, the Indian Chamber, the American Chamber, and so forth, coming together. And hopefully, maybe before the end of the year, with the help of Executive Secretary Bimbo Medaldia, pass the Prosperity Council that will help strengthen even more the relationship between private and public sector. But let me share with you my learnings over these past 12 years that makes a successful entrepreneur. It basically relies on the 3 M's. Mentorship, which is very important, money, and market. All of you here know the power of mentorship. All of you here, and most of you, are part of the Kapatid Angat Lahat. And many of you here are also part of the Agri-Viber group, composed of about 150 mentors, today actively mentoring, together with the Department of Agriculture, the mentoring program called Mentor Me. Even with our partners in DTI, we have close to 450 mentors today, mentoring many of our entrepreneurs, micro and small, especially, in the many provinces that until this very day is ongoing. And the power of mentorship is right there where they need it most. Many of them have not finished high school or college. It's too late to send them to school and relearn. We have to throw them that lifeline and help them, guide them to become successful. All of this business advice, and even us in this room today, by mere fact of having this ASEAN Summit, we are learning from one another. We are sharing our thoughts. You will see the various models on how we can promote inclusive growth in this country. So the power of mentorship is very important, that the ASEAN Business Advisory Council will launch AMEN, which stands for ASEAN Mentors for Entrepreneurship Network. A network among 10 ASEAN countries, which will be expanded to our partners, dialogue partners, the US, China, bringing about a pool of mentors from each country. The Philippines, of course, is far ahead with close to 450 mentors. And on November, and hopefully with President Trump, who is the apprentice, launch AMEN together with our brothers among ASEAN. So that is how important mentorship is. The next M is money. All of you know that even with mentorship, but without the resources to capital, loans, every entrepreneur will struggle. It will all just be a dream. But without money to fund them, nothing will happen to that dream. We have various forms of lending. The big banks lend to the big companies. What we need are big banks getting into smaller banks, rural banks. Banks like BDO buying One Network. After the Asian crisis, more than half of our rural banks were destroyed. They have to be resurrected, because this is the only way that our micro and small entrepreneurs can be reached. Our MFIs provide that role, card and so forth. But we need more. We need more people. We need more banks to lend, more especially without collateral. If I were to choose to borrow, and what is more important, interest rate or collateral, I'd say the privilege of borrowing money without collateral is more important than even high interest rates. I know our fellow Indian community is here, and I don't accuse our Indian friends of lending even at higher interest rates, because they take the highest risk in lending. To me, interest rates come with the level of risk. But what is more important is lending collateral-free. Other countries like India and lend without collateral, and especially for our micro and small entrepreneurs. And this is what we're going to focus on when the Prosperity Council is formed, is to push lending with no collateral. Banks and big banks should not be penalized for a higher loan loss when it comes to micro and small. And that's another reform that we should push with the central bank. So money is very important. And in the end, market. Without market, where will these farmers sell their product? We have to provide them access to market. Large corporations, we control the market. Supermarkets, groceries, convenience stores, wet markets, all of these, shopping centers, us as processors control the market. We have to embrace them as part of our value chain. Supermarkets, groceries will have to bring them in. To me, that is very important. You may have the mentorship, you may have the money, but you don't have the market. All these three M's are equally important in creating and helping them become successful. And you know it yourself. You were mentored by good schools, great parents, good friends. You have the access to capital. Because of your business model, you have the market. We are now in this room able to enjoy life. We now have to share this with the rest. And let me share you one business model, or inclusive business model, the Atisco model of Yasaki Torres. You have a mentor. The mentor, basically hired by Mr. Torres, was an ex-undersecretary from Agriculture, Dante de Lima. He basically started the program with 500 hectares in Mindoro. Mr. Torres also owns a rural bank. Together with the money that they're lending farmers, funded them on the condition that many of them use hybrid seeds for planting rice. He, Yazaki Torres, feeds his employees with free lunch and give away rice. So they are basically the market. Today, I'm told they have 700 hectares, and people are coming to them to duplicate that model in other areas. That is the right model. If we can have more corporations looking at models like this, whether in rice or other crops, this is the way forward. We are now transitioning from what I call the traditional structure of business to the new structure, which is the digital economy. While 99% of our business structure today is still traditional brick and mortar, the game changer is in the digital space. The development of market access can be done through applications. With the entry of Uber, Grab, Amazon, more applications or apps that create a marketplace is what is needed in the Philippines. We need the farmer to be able to sell directly to the consumer or a business entity his produce. That market access is needed. I don't know if you've heard of the gentleman who created this application called Crops. Of course, he's Mr. Calato, who's being challenged right now with the PSC and all of that. I met this guy a long time ago, a struggling entrepreneur, simple guy, always wears his fancy suit. But I have to give it to this guy. I've looked at his app called Crops, and it is a fantastic app. Maybe not in its perfect stage But the mere fact that we can start developing platforms like this, wherein somebody's selling hogs and vegetables and posting it there and being able to find a buyer is something we need. Something that you see today. All of you in this room use Uber and Grab. It has changed the landscape, hasn't it not? Big difference. We now control. We now have the power to choose. And that is what has to happen. Under the brick and mortar, I have to be, forthright that we, big business, control the destiny of our micro and small entrepreneurs. If I own a supermarket and I don't like your face, you're not going to get your product with me. But under the digital economy space, things change. You can see it in what is happening. The producer can definitely post his products, his services in that marketplace, and everybody can have access. You've used Amazon, Lazada, and all these different platforms that are coming and growing, and it's going to happen. Definitely it's going to happen. So this 3 M's is what I've learned through my journey in helping micro and small entrepreneurs. This is the pathway that many of you in this room can share with us as we lead and help our Filipinos have a better life. Senator Cynthia Villar was and is an entrepreneur. And she understands the problems. And many of you here understand the problem. Henry Libonleong has been a fighter for self-sufficiency in rice for many years. And he's right. It can be done. I'm glad that Senator Villar said so herself. By improving the productivity per hectare to 7-8 metric tons per hectare, then we can be self-sufficient. We can't overnight get rid of all of these farmers and change them to planting other crops, because then the prices of all of these other crops will go down. In fact, I was, my sister, Marie, goes to these poor areas and serves meals to the young children. And part of that is vegetables. And she was surprised why the kids were not eating vegetables. And is it because vegetables are an economic status that if you eat vegetables, it means you're poor? That mindset has to change. And we can't change that overnight. So again, if we really want to change the landscape of prosperity for all in this country, definitely rice and the coconut farmers have to be addressed. And even the private sector who are operating corporate farming. I'm always amazed at why, despite Dole, Del Monte, and all the big guys in Bukidnon, why is Bukidnon one of the top 10 poorest provinces in the Philippines, despite private sector involved massively in this area? Private sector has to eventually realize the importance of helping. It has to come from the heart, our heart. How much are we willing to share our wealth? And sometimes it's a challenge. I have to accept that. Being a listed company, you are assessed with your performance. The more money you make, the better your price-earning ratio, the better your stock is followed. But what is that balance where we share and fulfill that promise to our investors and yet help many of our fellow people improve their lives? That, I leave it to you, what that balance should be. We cannot dictate that balance. So I hope, as we end the ASEAN 50th year anniversary, and President Duterte's basically last major international event during this term, because APEC will be 19 years before it comes back to the Philippines and ASEAN will be 10 years before it comes back again. This is the last major event that we will see. And I don't want to leave ASEAN as just a mere celebration of 50 years as a host, but really creating an impact in the lives of many of our farmers out there and give them a better hope. Many people here may be still skeptical about the leadership, about the style, and whatever. But we have to do it. No matter who leader is there, we all have to believe and contribute our fair share to make it happen. And that is why I've devoted a lot of time to really seeing and driving the point that partnering for change and creating prosperity for all is not but a mere theme, but something that all of us together has to achieve. In the end, agri can only become the game changer if all of you want to see it happen. Thank you.